And I tell people this constellation of people that came about because of November 2020. You couldn't have put these people together in life ever, I don't think, except the
Yeah.
gravitational forces of that event caused the people just to begin to orbit around each other. And all of us, every one of them, I would say, Danielle, said the republic is in peril. We have to do something.
Yeah.
And you got people who've literally, whether it's Patrick Byrne with tens of millions of dollars, he's expended it all, right?
Yeah.
Mark Cook, whether it's him probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of his life savings, because we just knew what we had to do. It's almost like a vocation, right? When folks say, "Why'd you join the military?" or "Why'd you join the priesthood?" or this, or it felt. I think for you guys too, it felt like a
Yeah.
vocation, like you were being moved on your heart that this had to happen.
Welcome, everybody, to For the Love of Freedom. Today is Wednesday, July 30th. It's 10 o'clock Central Time. We're coming to you live on Voice of the People USA Radio and TV Network, on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. So you should be able to find us wherever you are. I'm your host, Danielle Walker, and on this show, we meet people who have rejected the status quo, have rejected convention, and each in their own way are working to bring freedom to the world. Joining me today is my good friend, Matt Meck. He has basically been with us since the beginning of the State of Freedom when we launched in April of 2023. We were introduced by our mutual friend, who herself is a relentless fighter, Dr. Kathy Willis. Shout out to you, Dr. Kathy Willis. Matt is a Marine veteran. He's executive director of Unauthorized, which is an election integrity focused group. Very involved with Coalition of Candidates, an organization that was founded by Patrick Byrne to promote candidates who believe in the sanctity of our elections and that we should have transparent elections whose outcomes we can trust. He's 107's chief of staff. He hosts a show on Patriot Party News called PPN on Tap, and he probably wears 5 or 6 other hats that I don't know about. Matt, it's so good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Danielle, hey, good morning, and thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to be here.
It's so good to have you here. We were just saying off air that we don't actually get to sit down and visit. It's a lot of text messages and quick soundbite phone calls.
It is, and especially now. I mean, I think people get a sense. Certainly, things are increasing at an increasing rate, and what we've seen just in 6 months is I don't I've been alive since 1963, and I don't think I've seen a president move this quickly.
No, it's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. Well, I love to start out every show with a scripture to kind of frame out where we're going. Today's scripture is Psalm chapter 112, verses 6-8. And I love this when I read it. I think it's very appropriate for a show with you. It says, "Their circumstances will never shake them, and others will never forget their example. They will not live in fear or dread of what may come, for their hearts are firm, ever secure in their faith. Steady and strong, they will not be afraid, but will calmly face their every foe until they all go down in defeat." And Matt, I thought that was so appropriate to bring because I have to tell you, from my perspective, you have been so steady and so consistent in your march forward in this battle for the future of our republic since I've met you, whether it's insane, RNC, state level corruption, and watching good people that you fought so hard for get sidelined and completely maligned, having their names run through the mud, whether it's the fight for election integrity and feeling like I know there's still been so many moments where we feel like we thought we were so close and then the rug got pulled out from under us, but you have been so steady, so calm, so focused. I've never seen you black pill. I've seen a lot of people black pill who have been in this fight probably the same amount of time as you. but I've never seen you lose your cool. So thank you for that. Thank you for your steadiness in this fight. It's a real inspiration, and maybe you can tell us what your secret is to that.
So sometimes I do. I mean, the coalition calls we have on Friday morning, especially if a friend or somebody fighting this battle, like you or Chris or a Nino or Mark Fincham, Doug Mastriano, when folks target my friends, that's when probably because I joined the Marine Corps, that's when that Irish in me can come out a little bit. But I try to just, and I think a lot of us, whether it's myself, Mark Cook, um, Fincham, Rachel Ham, Keith Blanford, General Flynn, Patrick Byrne, 107. I mean, we get emotional sometimes, yeah, but we know the mission. We keep our head down. We know God's in control, right? And he's got the plan. We're just imperfect instruments that he's using. And I tell people this constellation of people that came about because of November 2020. You couldn't have put these people together in life ever, I don't think, except the
Yeah,
gravitational forces of that event caused the 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 people just to begin to orbit around each other, and all of us, every one of them, I would say, Danielle said, the republic is in peril. We have to do something, and
yeah,
and you got people who've literally, whether it's Patrick Byrne with tens of millions of dollars, he's expended it all, right?
yeah,
Mark Cook, whether it's him probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of his life savings, because we just knew what we had to do. It's almost like a vocation, right? When folks say, "Why'd you join the military?" or "Why'd you join the priesthood?" or this, or it felt. I think for you guys too, it felt like a
yeah,
vocation, like you were being moved on your heart that this had to happen.
yeah. It has had to happen, and it has been a beautiful thing to see. You're exactly right. I mean, I believe the law of attraction is really God, but it's a force created by God. But it's been an amazing thing to see people come together. And what's funny is so many of us have never even met in person. There's so many people that I talk to on a weekly basis that I feel, you know, like we've been in the trenches together, and I've never ever met them in person. So hopefully that will change soon. But
I hope
until then,
I met somebody for the first
including
time
you.
in January, and because they've only either heard my voice on a Friday call or seen me sitting down, and they go, "Wow, you're taller than I thought you
I always get you're shorter than I thought you were, so it's okay.
Hey, it's that's why God makes us in all in various ways, and it all comes together for a wonderful picture.
It does. It does. Let's go back in time. So you mentioned 2020 as kind of the seminal event. It was for so many of us. Is that, I mean, as much as I feel like I know you pretty well by now, I don't really think I have the genesis story of how you got involved in this movement, how long you've been focused on this, and how it all came together.
The to go back before 2020, as a whistleblower, an inconsequential one, really. I mean, compared to folks like John Dotson and others, I was blew the whistle on Fast and Furious, and which is now coming back in. You see Mike Benz now
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, I hope Tulsi goes back and unclassifies all the Eric Holder stuff on Fast and Furious." And by the
Yes.
way, where do you see how Eric Holder and Merrick Garland go back to the Oklahoma City bombing and what that was all about? You're going to see them
Wow.
involved in that too, and they wound up both being attorneys general. Interesting.
Hmm.
Um,
It is
but
interesting.
it was that, and knowing the evil in our government. I think I was twice or three times on Alex Jones's show talking about Fast and Furious, and I remember testifying in front of House Oversight. Did it remotely, and then to
From your perspective in the military, or were you in a different
I
perch at
was
that
already
point?
out, but I had been asked to do certain things that when I realized it wasn't to find the truth, but it was to contain information.
Mm.
And then I began to speak out and wrote for the Hill, testified again to House Oversight. I got showing one. I got an email from Trey Gowdy back in the day that said, "Send me everything you have on Fast and Furious." That was Chaffetz was the chairman. Gowdy was, I think, the number two guy there. And then a lot of kudos to Senator Grassley and Jason Foster, who was his chief investigator, and spent hours with them because one, I still to this day, the mother of Brian Terry, Josephine Terry, she needs answers, right? Brian Terry was the Bortach agent who was murdered, in my opinion, by our own government because he was uncovering the truth, what was going on. So my point is, back then, and I was telling this, I told this to several of them. I said, this is to the folks in government. I said, this one thing is one head of a many-headed hydra, right? And there's something bad in the government. And then folks who I had been talking to, once 2020 came, they go, "Wow, how did you know?" I said, "Well, I didn't know this would happen." But then when I
Yeah.
saw that, and being in the military, and the job I did was flying prowlers, EA-6B prowlers, we jam radars, jam communications, information warfare, electronic warfare. Being in the intelligence world, because of that, to a certain extent, you could see I knew we did those things, election manipulation on behalf of the U.S. to other countries, and then a lot of us in the military, uh, who had been retired, and I think Flynn saw it like that. We saw this turn on us, this thing we created, the
Wow.
monster turned on us. How I really got involved, though, is some of the folks who had handled, not the right word, but had coordinated with me or coordinated me on Fast and Furious had been fairly quiet, and they told me, you know, you're going to go down to the Venetian Hotel, which was here, and you're going to meet, you're going to go see 107, and you're going to show him a contact in your phone. And I have this contact, and you're going to show him that contact. He will show you he has the exact same contact, and you'll know you can trust him. So, because prior to that, I'd only heard him like on Ann Vandersteel's show,
Yeah.
reading from his book, Kid by the Side of the Road. I didn't know who the hell 107 was. I had no clue. So that night, we had a bond, but he literally, I'm not exaggerating, Danielle. That night, he talked to myself, and I think there might have been a couple others in the room, Jim Marchant, maybe several others. But he kind of laid what we just lived these last 4.5 years. He almost laid out, this is what's going to happen, right? It's
Wow.
the
And
time
when was
frames are.
this?
This was November 2020. This was the
Okay.
Sunday after the Tuesday election of 2020. And then from that point on, we were in each other's orbit, and he'd been became like a big brother to me. That's why I looked up at him, and then became his chief of staff. February of 2021, we had they called it the first Digital Continental Congress in Vegas.
Yeah.
Uh, we literally, it started with a call I had with Fincham, Mark Fincham. Mark Fincham and Jim Marchant were running for secretaries of state of Nevada and Arizona. And I said, hey, you were both in the same fight, doing the same thing. Perhaps you guys should meet. So Fincham had thought, hey, yeah, how about maybe, like Havasu, it's kind of halfway. And he said, oh, by the way, I've got this number. Somebody called me from a Christina Caramo. And so I reached out to her. So she came. And then Jim knew Rachel Ham. And we had Doug Mastriano and Jody Hines. And all of a sudden, we organized this first Secretaries of State Summit. It was 1 May of 2021 at the Trump Hotel in Vegas. And that's where we kind of really started, really from a Secretaries of State perspective. Doug Mastriano involved because he was running for governor. And in Pennsylvania and some other states, the governor appoints Secretary of State. I don't think that's a good model, by the way. I think a Secretary of State needs
No.
to be an independent constitutional officer. Um,
100%.
Yeah, because the politics gets involved, right? If you work for somebody as something as important
Yep.
as Secretary of State. But so that then a month later we all met together in Phil Waldron's place in Dripping Springs, Texas, and we had a 2 day event, and then we started crafting out like a strategy what we should do. Then we started these Friday phone calls with everybody, and then started getting more and more. Now they go from Hawaii to Massachusetts and Alaska to Texas. I mean, that's how eclectic the and along the way we've had. Doesn't matter if you were Jewish, black, white, gay, straight. It didn't matter. And we had some
Yeah.
grassroots Democrats, right? And we had them brief at a couple of our forums. The forums then started 1 December of 2021. We knew we had to begin to educate the masses on how does your election system actually work, because damn sure hardly anybody in government knew how election worked. It was
Right.
sadly they had no clue. And for the audience here, remember when it's not just the machines, it's not just the tabulation part, it's the voter registration part, it's the voter validation part when you come in and you check in to vote, it's the tabulation, and it's the reporting. It's kind of four different aspects that is the entire ecosystem. So 1 December 2021 in Reno, we had our first forum. And then we just went all over the country, and we've had over 50 of them. We just had a one out here on 5 July, which, Bannon had zoomed in. We had three secretaries of state call in and thank the grassroots. That was Chuck Gray out of Wyoming, Denny Hoskins out of Missouri, and Chris Warner out of West Virginia. And they said, it's you all, the grassroots. You all helped us get to here. You all helped us to get the advances we have gotten. Is it perfect? No. We got to do more? Yes. But you all, and then Chris Warner had an interesting comment. He said, I went to a Republican women's group he's in West Virginia, and all of them were talking about hand counting. He
Mm-hmm.
goes, 4.5 years ago, that was a minority position. Now it's the main position because of you all. You all have pushed this up from the bottom up. So anyway, that's how it kind of progressed. It's just grown and grown and grown. And I'd say now what we're seeing is that we've educated the masses, helped to not only, and you've got other great people like Professor Franks, you've got Professor Clements, Sean Smith, Draza Smith. I mean, you've got great people doing amazing things. But what we began to do is just educate and inform at this level. And now, thank God, what you're seeing is that which we've put out. And this the group we have, this very eclectic group. Back in April, we had put out a proposed follow-on election executive order. It's 17 pages. I wonder how that happened. That was manipulation a little bit to get it to 17
Providential or
pages. But it is all encompassing, and it's been up into DOJ and other folks in government. And I'm just using their words, and it wasn't my document. Believe me, it was election judges and folks who've studied this stuff, and secretaries of state's inputs, lawyers' inputs, Garland Favorito's folks out of Voter GA. And it's a very great document. I mean, I have to say. And then what we're hearing back is that, wow, this is yeoman's work. This is 85% of the template for what needs to happen going forward. So now we seem to be in alignment from the top down and from the bottom up. We're both pushing and advocating for the same things, and hopefully we see those things meet here.
I hope we do. Where, if people are interested in looking at the document, is it housed on is it maybe on Mark's website?
Mark Scudder on handcountroadshow.org. It is
Okay.
there, and I'll send you. I think I sent you a copy back in April, but I'll send you.
I'm
I think I sent
sure.
it to
Yeah.
you and Chris, but I'll send you another copy of it. Bannon's got it. Matter of fact, on the 5th of July, Bannon said, send this to me. And I was talking on the mic, he had remote in. I said, sir, I sent it to you before. I'll send it to you again. And he said, I'm sending this right to Trump right away. So
Well, wonderful. Meet the world's first living, full-spectrum, certified organic CBDA hemp extract. Ness's hemp oil was extracted from seed to bottle without chemicals, solvents, or heavy metals, and it surpasses world-class standards for purity. This pure and powerful CBDA has been proven to reduce aches and pains, ease mental tension, and promote better sleep. To get yours today, visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. Do you have any insight into what's coming down the pike? I mean, we know Tulsi, and I believe Kristi Noem were tasked with having their teams dig into the validity and the hackability, I guess, of the machines through Trump's early executive orders. There's rumblings that other executive orders are probably in the works behind the scenes. Some that we can expect before the midterms. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I mean, I don't know anything 100%. Just what I'm kind of relayed is I from several different sources, and on our show, the On Tap with PPN, we had Patrick Byrne and Martine Rodil on last Thursday. Martine had briefed us in January back in DC. Um, he has been briefing Tulsi and Elon and folks in DOJ, Ed Martin and others. And he said, wait. He said it. General Flynn has said it, and others have said it. Wait till you see what's revealed about what happened in 2020. It's going to show. It's going to be much worse than what you already seen from Tulsi releasing on 2016, 2017. So the message I'm getting relayed is that going forward for federal elections, at least for federal elections, no machines, no machines, end count, paper ballot, precinct level, and that document that I talked to you about that follow on proposed executive order highlights that. And it's interesting. Martine said on the show on Thursday, after he had briefed Elon in his home, he was walking out of the into the garage through the garage door, and Martine goes, "Surprise! There's a Tesla in Elon's garage." And Elon having been briefed, and he's briefed these folks who were first order involved, and why
Yeah.
and it's why it's no surprise that Marco said Maduro is not the president of Venezuela. The government's not there because
Right.
that cartel, the Los Soles, that's the generals that they wear stars on their epaulets. Patrick's talked about this, and they're intricately involved, and it's all going to go. You're going to see Venezuela, you're going to see Cuban intelligence, you're going to see Serbia, you're going to see CCP, Ministry of State Security involved, Iran.
Wow.
But Elon said, he goes, basically highlighting why we could never have computers running elections again. He said, the computer in that car could manipulate a U.S. election. The computer in a Tesla is powerful enough, it could manipulate a U.S. election. So the right folks understand it, but I think the audience it's not all rainbows and unicorns, in that Tulsi kind of highlighted this at the Turning Point um, event that she briefed at, where just a week or two ago, where she
Yeah.
said, "We're fighting. The deep state's real, and it's fighting back, but we're not going anywhere." So there's still a battle going on. It's not time. We're not across the goal line yet by any stretch of the means. So we cannot rest.
No, we can't rest. I've been reading, Emerald Robinson has been doing an incredible job of cataloging literally every single benchmark from 2020, like the 2020 election treachery down through today. And she mentioned Venezuela in that. And I think she's got her finger on the pulse. And what we're going to see here soon, it seems like John Solomon has done some reporting, even last night on Hannity, saying that Chuck Grassley is going to release the Durham Annex as soon as
Annex.
today,
Yep.
and Hillary is heavily implicated in that.
Heavily implicated in that. And you're right. I think folks are going to be surprised, not just how the election was manipulated, and what you'll see eventually. I think again, Martine talked about it on the show, how patriots inside our government who still are defending the Constitution, what they did to make sure 2024 wasn't stolen. Um, but I think you're going to see a lot more coming out, and it's not just how they did what they did to manipulate the election. It is creating it was mapping out, and kudos to Sean Taylor and Mark Fincham and EFI. They've given us
That's
stuff to
right.
DOJ on what they found with they call it magic mortgages, right? I would love to, if it were legal, wouldn't it be nice, Danielle, to have a house that's worth $400,000, but somehow you get a mortgage for 27 million? Boy, that'd be
Seems,
something.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Although
and
I
they're
wouldn't
finding,
want that note if I didn't have the income.
if I didn't have the income, yeah. But how do all these folks, how does all this work? But what they talked about, and what I think that people are going to see, is the network of domestic and foreign accomplices that made this work. And as Martin shared, he goes, and people who've been born here, who are in this country, in the government, who have sold out the government, for 30 pieces of silver.
Yeah.
He, especially hard for him to really internalize that, because he's weeks away from being a naturalized U.S. citizen. He was originally born in
Wow.
Venezuela. He's been there for 20 some years, and he can't understand. As he says, this is the greatest country in the world. He goes, I already lost one country. I couldn't afford to lose two. So I
That's,
think what the people will see with the network, the criminal network, the traitorous network that effectuated this and has been doing. And what, by the way, the folks who the government has now deposed and talked to, they said, oh, by the way, not just the United States, it's 71 other countries, and we've been doing this for 20 years.
yeah.
So how many
And
other
Juan has
countries?
talked about that before. How many? 70? Those are the color
72.
revolutions that that Juan's referenced, I believe, on the State of Freedom with us.
Yes. And they
That's
talk about how they've been doing this for 20 years.
That is so crazy. And just maybe a little context for the listeners who aren't familiar with Sean Taylor. He's the now retired deputy chief of police from Millersville, Tennessee. We had Mark Fincham on last year, shortly after they had a press conference in Vegas, which I know you were at, Matt, where they uncovered this transnational um, criminal conspiracy that involved mortgage fraud. It involved Act Blue. It involved election finances, and God knows what else. I think they talked about trafficking in that context as well.
Yeah, yeah, it was yes, all it's sick, and but you see how they finance their evil ways, and isn't it amazing how with USAID being cut off, boy, the Media Matters and the DNC are all suffering now. You got
Yeah,
to think that how much of our tax dollars were being funneled to groups like that to destroy us from within.
yeah, it's absolutely sick. It's absolutely sick. And I mean, it's funny in a way. You look at some of these big shows that are being canceled, and you like the View,
The View
Colbert.
going on a hiatus. Yeah.
Yeah. Are they going on a hiatus because of ratings? I mean, their ratings could never have been that great to, at least not in the last 5 years. It's been such trash and vitriol. I don't know who would want to watch that. But were we funding? I mean, I think we're going to find that we have been funding The View to tell us to hate ourselves. I think we've probably done the same for Colbert.
I think you're right. And as Boone Cutler and General Flynn would tell you, it's all about that, right?
Yeah.
That's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, and Matt, I think I've been talking to a gentleman who's been really involved with exposing the geoengineering um, and weather modification and all of the poison that's in the air. Talking to people who are in the fight for regenerative farming, talking to people who are in the fight against vaccines, and you make the greatest point. This is a many-headed hydra that we are facing. And if we can get the election piece fixed, if we can get that fixed, I think it's going to be tremendous. It'll be orders easier to be able to deal with the other heads. Um, I think part of that also has to include and will continue to include Trump getting rid of the bureaucratic state, um, at thousands at a time. But how do you see this playing out?
I think what we're finding, and one of the other things Trump posted was this is working. Had a picture of Trump and it had Democrat and Republican symbols, the donkey and the elephant isn't working. Brigadier General retired Blaine Holt, Air Force, great American. If you, I'll give you his contact information. You see him on Newsmax. He comes on our show once in a while. He's very close with Juan and myself. He and Tony Schaefer will come on once in a while. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer, and just getting Tony on about um, his life when he was both in the army and he was a spy. So it was interesting with Able Danger and so forth. What General Holt, I think, encapsulated really well. Um, it's people got to stop thinking R versus D, right? It's we the people versus those who want to control us. And he goes, those who want to control us, go look at the city of London, right? The WHO, the WEF, the WHO. That's what this really is about. Don't be um, don't be 5GW'd into thinking Republicans solve your problem. It's when it gets down to it, people maybe run as Republican because they have been less infiltrated, less corrupted in some capacity. But don't think the RNC, not the RNC, but the Republican Party as a whole hasn't been. I mean, look at some of these people. So
Right. And
that's
look
what I
at their
think the American
votes.
people are seeing. It's much bigger than a two-party spat. It is we've been controlled, and now we're seeing the lines from the puppet master. We're beginning to see where those lines go to.
What do you have to say about people who um, seem to be willfully unawake and people who seem to kind of just be happy to be controlled?
I think that's human nature. I mean, look back at the Revolutionary War, right? I mean, a third of the people were for it, a third were for the Tories, a third were like, I go either way.
Yeah.
I think that's just the history of humanity, right? It is a
You
small
even
group.
think back to,
I was going to say a small
sorry, go
group
ahead.
wakes up, and that group can have huge asymmetric effect for good, or if we're too many of us are asleep, evil can pop in there.
Yeah. I was even thinking, as you said, it's kind of the history of human nature back to the Exodus from Egypt for the Israelites. If you look, historical accounts say that only 20% left and 80% were happy to stay in slavery. They chose to stay in slavery rather than leave.
Which I can't understand. I mean, I forget who said it, but I'm going to paraphrase it. I'll prefer the messy chaos of freedom to the supposed security and comfort of slavery.
Yeah. One thing we talked about with Boone when he came on the State of Freedom a while back, is probably last year we had him on the show. Do you think people are going to be able to handle the kind of freedom that this nation was birthed to have? You think about ending the Fed, you think about ending the IRS, like we were talking about, ending just government overreach in every aspect of life. Are people going to even know how to live with that kind of freedom?
On their own, no. Bringing God back into the equation, yes. Because remember, remember John Adam and Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, also 1776. Look at and then John Adams is that our and it wasn't capitalism, that was just called free markets. That was Adam Smith. It doesn't work without a moral people, right? At John Adams, this system of government does not work without a moral people. So maybe it's time to bring God back into schools. Maybe it's bring God back in our life. Maybe it's bring God back to the in the words of Gail Sayers, the great running back for the Chicago Bears. I'm reading this book in third grade called I Am Third. He said, God's first, my family second, and I'm third. And I think perhaps simultaneously having that realignment of the American population realizing that there is a greater power that we serve, then I think we're okay. But if we just leave it to the devices of mere men and women, we'll go right back to where we've been.
Yeah. No, that's an amazing point. We've heard kind of throughout this last 5 years people talk about the fact that when you are faced with true evil, even atheists have to understand that God is real in the face of true evil. And it's a very interesting concept because, there's a lot of people who didn't need to see like the depths of evil to understand that God is real, to have that in their heart, the willingness to believe that they're not the number one of the universe, that God is higher and better and benevolent and loves us. Um, but maybe this is the road that we're on. And you think about some of the things that are probably going to be uncovered even in the coming weeks and days with Hillary's whatever her involvement was. I love that we're getting the details behind what we pretty much have known was true, because it shows the depth of the treachery.
Yes, and it's interesting. I think going back to God for a second. Sometimes God leads us to our own devices, and said, "Okay, I'll let you experience utter chaos and evil and what we saw with the Biden administration. I'll let you experience that." And I think it had to, people then woke up, and I'm actually impressed with looking at younger people for some reason, especially young males. I don't know why females not as much, but young males who are um, I don't even call it conservatism, but going back to common sense, right? And
Hmm.
they're not buying into this thing hook, line, and sinker. And I think they realize they're not following a religion per se. They're just getting a relationship with Christ because Christ didn't start a religion. I mean,
Right.
humans start a religion. That was a God. He was trying to show you here's how to have a relationship with me, and it's pretty
Yeah.
freaking easy. I'm doing the hard part. Yours is pretty simple. And to your point,
Yeah.
better those who believe without seeing. I was just talking to we had Bishop Leon Benjamin on 2 nights ago, and we were talking about Thomas, and how Thomas when I could put my fingers in the holes of his hand and his side, I'll believe. And then once he saw, he said, "Oh my Lord," and he believed. He was genuinely my Lord. But think of that. He had to be coached by God first directly, the ascendant
Yeah.
Christ from the grave. And then what did Christ say? You've believed because you saw, but better those who believe who didn't see. And I think to your point, this group that's assembled, um, I think it was driven by this by and large, most of us with a belief in God, and that let's and not that we're if you listen to people pray when we do our Friday calls and so forth, they're asking God, have us do what you want us to do, not do what you don't want us to do, and have us not implement our will, but hopefully we're implementing your will.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And, I've had a thought experiment these last couple weeks as something's just been tinkering around in my mind. If you think about your relationship with Jesus, when Jesus came to restore our relationship with God, humanity's relationship with God, it had gotten governmental in a way. It had gotten politicized, right? You had to go through the priest to get to God. You had to go through a sacrifice every year to get to God and to get right with God. And if you think about what Christ did on the cross and his resurrection, what he did was he decentralized religion again. He decentralized the relationship with God again. And I think that's a model. I watch, I don't know, do you follow Jack Cruz on Twitter at all? He's a former neurosurgeon. Anyway, you would like some of his stuff. He's pretty salty and he's kind of out there. He's living in exile in El Salvador right now. But one thing that he believes in is like radical decentralization. And and I think the relationship that Jesus provided, the reconciliation that he provided so that we can each individually have our own devolved relationship with Jesus that doesn't require any middleman, is the same that we're supposed to have in government. It's the same we're supposed to have in medicine. It's the same we're supposed to have in finances. Like the relationship with Jesus as a decentralized model is the model. At least this is what my thought experiment is leading me to believe, for a free society.
I agree. Look at the Old Testament. I mean, the Jewish people, they were jealous that other countries had a king and they didn't have a king. And Christ, God is telling the prophet Samuel they don't need a king, but they wanted a king. So okay, I'll give you what you want. And I think you're right. I mean, if if you are in alignment with God, then a governmental system, really, if you're in alignment with God completely, the kingdom has come, right? You're implementing His kingdom principles, and it's only because we're not that then we form, and the founders talked about this, forming a government to protect those natural rights that God gave us. Because when we're left to our own devices, sometimes we devolve into. I mean, I saw it when I was overseas. I'm looking down, flying over Croatia and Serbia, and you're like, my God, these people, they're left to our own devices. We go off, we go off the rails, and God's every once in a while got to come back in and no, 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 stay here. And I think, like Mike Lindell talks about it, I think God, those of us who wanted answers to our prayers in November 2020, we got them. Maybe not the answer we wanted. It's like when your parents, you want this thing, you don't get it, but you learn a better lesson from your mom and dad, how they actually effectuated that what you wanted. God had to show you, I'm going to use this to expose what you have been asleep and not seeing. Now you can't see it. And for folks who don't want to see it, they're going to be around with us, I think, Danielle, all the time throughout history. If you want to be blissfully ignorant, that's your prerogative. But then you can't complain when things go bad.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we'll be
and
there.
being
We will be
blissfully,
there on the
we'll be
wall
there.
fighting for you.
That's right. That's right. And I think the sad thing is the blissful ignorance, is really a lie in and of itself, because it's true misery to live in a way where you don't feel, where you're not connected to purpose. And if you're not connected to the truth, you can't be connected to purpose. I firmly believe that.
I agree. I mean, I understand there's a component of not wanting to get hurt, but these folks who in Cincinnati walk by and these people are getting beat up. I mean, the first thing I would have done,
Right.
I would have gone defended these people. I mean, maybe that's stupid. You rush in, but maybe that's why I joined the Marine Corps. But when you see evil, when you see something like that happening, uh, to just do this, right? We saw it in our country for years. How many abortions? God's not in
Yeah.
school anymore. Transgender crap, drag queen stuff in our
Racism.
to our kids.
Yeah.
We just do this bull crap. No, 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 no.
Yeah. You're right. Well, on the topic of people who have pursued the truth and stood on the wall, you mentioned Mike Lindell. You also brought to mind Tina Peters as you were saying that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
What's I saw Mike at least didn't have to pay the 5 million. I'm sure he's still in other litigation. What's going on with him?
With Mike, I know, my pillow is certainly under still constant attack, and the AG up in
Yeah.
Minnesota, fighting the Lindell Recovery Network, which is, I mean, because it's a Christian-based way to help people get off of drugs and alcohol. If
Right. Yeah.
anyone would know how to do that, it's friends of mine who are former alcoholics, or talking to Mike, former addict. People, they won't listen to you or me, who haven't been through the lows of being addicted to that stuff. But somebody who
Right.
hasn't gotten through, somebody who's now in that current state, they'll listen because, okay, you know what it's like. You know this pain. So, I know the part of that ruling that he had that didn't go his way in Colorado is being appealed. And I think Mike is going to be vindicated. on things he's been championing is gonna show in a large part. It's going to come to fruition that he was right. A lot of us were right, and Mike has been that more public uh, squire in the village talking about this, right, and letting us all know and keeping it in the national consciousness. We've been doing it in a different way, going around, and Mark does it. Hell, Mark's just been in Colorado for 30 days. By the way, keep him in your prayers. He survived. He almost got killed last week. His
What
Jeep,
happened?
he was I think in the Denver area, is waiting to go to UPS, drop off a couple packages in his Jeep at a stoplight. And long story short, a, a, a Dodge 2500 hit a Dodge 1500, which smacked into his Jeep, smashed it
Gosh.
up. His laptop got destroyed and everything else, but he's lucky he survived. It's like the Jeep collapsed like it was supposed to, so it dissipated a lot of the energy. But boy, but just his the way he's wired. They wanted him to go to the doctors and get extra. Nope, I have to get back to California. I'm doing a presentation, so out of Denver into Phoenix, back to California. So, but my point is, we're all doing it in different ways, but we've kept it up. Patrick Byrne, I mean, I think near $80 million of his money. I mean, he's just burned through
Wow.
to help us. And you saw domestically a lot of what they did with the American Project, and that's how they helped us a lot with these forums. No questions asked. They'd fund us, didn't dictate the topics or the speakers. They just said, "Go here, go do good, go educate." But what we
Yeah.
didn't see, and now you're seeing it, is what was called Tap Global, and what they were doing in Venezuela, in Brazil, in parts of Europe, and mapping out and tracking down this network that not only was part of the manipulation of the 2020 election, but how it connected back into here through capital, how it was funded. And you're going to see, I think, this merging of what Fincham and those guys are doing with these folks, how all that was funded, and who domestically was doing this as well. And as General Flynn said it at the forum, at the event he was just at with Laura Logan and Jack Posobiec and Boone in D.C. Last week. Where do you see 2020? Wait, you think this is bad? Wait do you see what's going to show up here about 2020?
And the information that's still coming out now, the disclosure, like this Grassley release of the Durham annex, that's all Crossfire, Hurricane, Russiagate. That's not any. I mean, that's not. We haven't gotten to the lead up to 2020 yet in terms of D class. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. And that part of that's there. Now I don't know how it might touch into there, and I think what you're going to see.
Sure.
You remember, like in your high school or elementary school math classes, where you get the intersections of the sets, and the overlap. Are you
Yeah.
going to see where these circles kind of overlap? I think you're going to see where all this overlap is occurring because this was quite sophisticated. This was very wide and deep. This just wasn't somebody with a harebrained idea at the last minute had to do something. This has been going on for a while. Think about it. The folks who were involved in the 2020 talk about we've been doing this for 20 years in 72 countries. Think about this, Danielle. And I don't call it conservatism versus liberal or R versus D, just the will of the American people. I think the will of the American people, by and large, were pretty much common sense people. When they say, "Well, you get what you voted for," well, Louisiana, you got what you voted for, but did you
My
actually
gosh.
vote for that? Did you
Right. I
actually?
hate
Is that
that.
the reflection
I
of your vote?
hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate it on so many fronts. One, you see it in the news all the time, which that was one thing I didn't mention. The decentralization of the news is leading us into truth. And I can't
Yes.
wait to see all of these massive news organizations that we've all relied on so heavily, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, Fox. I want to see them all collapse because we need, in order to actually have truth, we have to have real journalism.
I agree,
But
and
what we
I think
see
yes.
Sorry, what we see on the news is one that you have these talking heads get up there and say, "Well, California, you get what you voted for." Well, no, no, they didn't. They didn't get what they voted for. They didn't vote for all these people to come and vote in their elections and water down their vote and use all of their resources and funding. Um, and then even when you do get what you voted for, right? Think about some of the people that are in elected office, even in the state of Louisiana. What we thought we were getting is very different from what we got. So that's one lie right there. But then there's all the little lies in the middle of how did that person actually get to be a candidate in the first place? All of those steps are lies, or corruption, or something. So there's any number of ways that we're not getting what we voted for.
It's just this is it's too probably sophomoric, but when I was in high school, I remember telling a principal, I think his name was Mr. Ballou, and I said, like being a congressman for your district, it should be like a jury duty, right? It's like, hey, Danielle, guess what? You're now the congresswoman for your district for the next 2 years in DC. And guess what? You're going to live in a dormitory in DC. You're going to eat cafeteria food. It's going to suck, but you're going to do your civic duty. And then you're going to come back here. And there'll be no incentive for you to stay there. You'll want to get back to your life, but go do.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I know it's not constitutional, but that's what I love this. I love to see, like you had citizen soldiers in the militia, citizen legislators that you go, you do your thing, and you come back. And uh, I know you're what's his name? Was it Long out of Louisiana
yeah,
back in
Huey
the
P.
day? That's
Long.
why we got the 17th Amendment and direct election of senators, supposedly. But I love what Justice Scalia told. I think it was Dick Salisbury. Scalia used to hunt on their land in Texas. I believe it was Dick who said, "Will we ever fully get our republic back?" And Scalia said, "No, not until we repeal the 17th Amendment. That your senators got to go back to being chosen by your legislature
Ambassadors,
because
right?
they as Scalia said, there's no body in Congress now, the two bodies that represents the states.
Mm-hmm.
People are represented in both now because you have direct election of the senators because uh, the state of Louisiana's interests sometimes are going to be different than somebody who's in the House representing folks from Baton Rouge or something, right? The whole state
Yeah,
has a different perspective, and I thought that was a very Scalia type of answer. I loved it. He goes, "Not until we get rid of repeal the 17th Amendment." Because remember, back at the founding of our country, they debated on whether to call senators ambassadors, ambassador from the sovereign state of New York, ambassador from the sovereign state of Georgia. They were there as emissaries from the state government
yeah,
to the federal government, not somebody who's following around the Senate Majority Leader or Senate Minority Leader and spending no time coordinating with your governor and your legislature. They're supposed to predominantly represent the will of the legislature of your state.
yeah. What do you think about term limits? Because I feel like we could just put term limits on hold and see what it's like to have free and fair elections. Because you think about somebody like Senator Grassley, no one could replicate his depth of knowledge and what he's there doing right now in the Senate. I mean, how old is he? He's in his 80s? He's
He's in
82
his
something. I
80s.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but he's been there forever, but he's been steady as a rock for the people of Nebraska, right? Forever.
Yeah, he's Iowa.
Iowa, sorry.
And I would say either put them on the Congress term limits or take them off the president. So I used to be a believer in it. Now I'm not because you're right. If we have free, fair, viable elections, and we just showed how kids 12 to 17, they had 5 minutes of instruction. They did it more quickly than the adults who've been doing it for a while and showed them at our 5 July event. And they did it more quickly with 100% accuracy on a moderately complex ballot. And they were like, this is easy. What the hell's the problem with this? Why, they're not even voted yet. And this is how we should do it, right? Yes, and Patrick said this. He goes, I think if we have a free, fair, verifiable election, we're going to see that we're not as screwed up as we think we are with elected officials.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think about some kind of campaign finance reform has to happen at some level? I think. I don't know. I mean, maybe just getting the elections cleaned up is one thing, but our legislature voted for itself to be able to have campaign donations from even foreign adversaries this year. So I don't think having that kind of money come into elections is part of a transparent and free and fair system. I happen to believe that only our representatives, if you are running for office in like a district, only people in that district should be able to give money into that election cycle. Now, right now, in an unfair system, I think it's okay to have money coming from other places because you got to help some people out
Yes.
where they have an unfair advantage already with these super PACs. But in terms of actual free and fair elections, why should money come in from even another state to my local election?
I'm favorable to your position, and I think it's Oregon. Although they don't follow it, they've passed legislation like this in the 1990s that they just
Really?
blew off. That you have to have, I don't think it was 100%, but a like 90% or something has to come from within inside the state. It can't even come from outside of Oregon. And I think deep critical thinking people. I mean, this is not something that you solve with an emotional like this is the answer. Think about
Right.
it. Think about first, second, third order effects. But something needs to be done because you're right. I mean, look at how you're going to see China, the CCP getting money into the elections. You're going to see a lot of chicanery going on. And again, I wish to God we could just say, hey, you had jury duty. Now you're a congressman, or now you're a senator.
Right.
It's not going to work that way, but that would make it like the lottery system, like when you get for the draft. We used to have a draft. Hey, guess what? Your
Yeah.
number's up. You're going, and
Yeah.
and it needs to suck. DC needs. I love what Charlie Kirk said. Senator Thune, you want these people to do their job? Turn the damn air conditioner off and be in a sweat box in there. And he goes, we didn't have air conditioning in the 1790s, 1800s. We wrote the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia in the summertime. Believe me, Philly is very swampy,
Yeah.
muggy in July. He goes, you want them to get them to really suffer, not in a bad way, but just your clothes are
Moderate
sticking.
suffering. Yeah.
They will vote to get stuff done, and I think it's time. I think it's time to do out of the box thinking things, not illegal things, not crass things, but we need to recalibrate.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that corporate money needs to get out of elections because corporations are not they're not representative of corporations, they're representative of people. And if enough people in that district are served well by that company, it seems like they would vote in the interest of the company. So I don't think that corporate money should be in our elections either. But
Yeah, I mean, and I think the battle we're in right now, purely political, presuming we have free, fair, verifiable elections going forward, is we have to get our act together because populism is on the rise. There's
yeah,
populism on the left, and there's populism on the right, and you get the gentlemen who have been the DNC candidates now for mayor in Minneapolis,
gosh,
mayor in New
yeah,
York. Do you want that, or do you want the side that I'm more favorable to is the side that we see Trump on is that the working people. I don't care what party you are, and I care the melanin in your skin. They had it, and if they're not fully represented and their interest addressed because they've been screwed for so long.
yeah.
We're gonna have a tectonic shift here, and we'll see what happens in New York and Minneapolis.
We will. Do you think, have you put any thought into this? When the IRS is officially shifted into the ERS, does that dissolve all nonprofit organizations? Because the only thing, I mean, the only differentiating factor is that they're not paying taxes as an organization. If we get rid of that, that would just be a magnificent thing. I mean, I don't even believe they're constitutional organizations.
Will it get rid of it? I don't know, because of certain states have taxes, and they would still be applicable in those
Yeah.
states, I guess. But it's interesting because you're right. It all that derives all from the IRS, doesn't it? A nonprofit, and then your state say, okay, you're a nonprofit. So that would be interesting. But I'm a big believer. Get rid of the Federal Reserve. Get rid of the IRS. And Bannon showed this on a show. You go back to the great movie John Adams, where um, it came out. I think it came out in the late 1990s. I think great movie. I think it was on HBO. And you see at the beginning of our country this battle between Hamilton and Jefferson about a central bank and assuming debt. And Washington really didn't want to do it, but he had a very special place in his heart for Hamilton, um, for what Hamilton did, rightly so, in the Revolutionary War, and he went with it. He went with that central bank. Uh, Jefferson got rid of it. It came back in again. Jackson got rid of it. Um, but this tension between centralization and decentralization has been with us since the inception, from the very first federal government that ever seated.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that. I didn't
It's a great
have that
line. It's
in
a
my
great
history
segment in there.
memory.
Just as the first cabinet meeting of the new government. I think Jefferson was the Secretary of State. I think Hamilton was Secretary of Treasury, and you see this conversation about centralizing debt so we can grow. And Hamilton had some good points, but Jefferson had some good points. So I think it's this balance, and I think we got it right from when Jackson got rid of the central bank to 1913. And
Yeah.
if you look at since the inception of the Fed, have we had more or less economic? It hasn't made a difference. It just cycles. It's just natural cycles. The Fed hasn't done a damn thing to either make it worse or better. It's moot.
Yeah, I need to take a look at that. I've always thought that since you know, you look at the stock market and you look at the economic cycles of the nation, and they don't start until then. And so I wonder if all that data is corrupted and everything we learn in econ is wrong because it's based off of a fake system.
Well, and you have to wonder. It's based on, you have to have valid inputs, right, to make a decision. And I was just
Exactly.
sharing this with somebody, folks of my vintage. We know who the Doors were, and Jim Morrison, of course. Well, his father was Admiral Morrison in the Navy. And Admiral Morrison, who was the one who reported the Gulf of Tonkin incident. And now we know that the Gulf of Tonkin incident never occurred. We were just told it occurred, and look what it did, right? Look what this. Go back to elections. Look at what the real coup, because Trump was in office in 2020. The coup that actually
Yeah.
occurred in 2020. Look what's happened. The Ukraine war, the death and destruction there, the havoc of mandates and shots and masks that were forced upon people when Biden was installed. These things have consequences, and look how many lives have been destroyed, lost.
Yeah, exactly. The secret to losing weight 2 times faster has gone viral. See the transformations hundreds of thousands of men, women, and teens are experiencing around the world with the Slender Eyes drops. These homeopathic hormone balancing drops are proven to control appetite, support thyroid function, improve energy, boost mood, and increase metabolic rate. To learn more about the drops or other incredible natural wellness and lifestyle products, email me at danielle@freedomstate.us or visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. Can before I let you go, I do want to hear your take on how Tina's doing. I don't think she's been let out of jail yet or prison yet, has she?
She's not. No, I know they put an amended filing in last Friday. Um, and Tickton was, I think, interviewed by Ash in America up there in Denver, and he talked about the biggest mistake the other side that put her in jail did is they lost the election, and truth's going to come out. So again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I believe a consensus thought on her legal team, and I don't speak for the legal team, is within 60 days. I think they're hoping she is out on bond at least, and I think what you're going to see come out about 2020 is directly going to benefit um, Tina.
Her case.
On
Yeah.
She's a hero. I mean, what she did.
She is a hero.
You hear so many people. Martine Rodil has said it. Patrick has said it. Others is that her courage provided the Rosetta Stone for folks to begin to go focus on what to go look for, and she was instrumental in them understanding how this thing worked, and that showed how the manipulation occurred. That then showed who was doing it. That then showed who was funding it. That then showed how they were all related. It just built and built and built and built up, and it was very, very much a result of Tina's heroism.
Yeah. Well, we need to keep praying for Tina. I know, gosh, what a lonely place that she doesn't deserve to be, and what horrific circumstances. So
And
I
think
can't
what they did
wait
real
for her
quick,
to get
Danielle.
out and be unmuzzled.
When they first arrested her, her father died while she was in prison. Right when they first arrested her, then they go and they convince her husband, who was in an assisted care facility for dementia, I believe, in Arkansas,
Yeah.
to divorce her, to then cut her off from VA benefits. And he said to her, I think I did something wrong. First of all, how is that even legal to have someone with dementia sign a document?
It's not.
And her mother's still alive. And her mother, a nice note to Joe Hoft when Joe did a story, and she goes, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tina is my daughter."
Gosh.
Yeah, the audience, please, you're listening to this, stop today some point, say a prayer, open the Bible, whatever page it opens up to, read it, and think about that, how it applies to Tina, because, again, she's kind of one of those people in the Revolutionary War who've given their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors to help us. And she risked everything, and now she's in prison.
Yeah, she is. I can't wait until she's out. I'm sure. I don't know if she'll. Do you have any indication on whether she's going to be talking when she gets out? If you know her, you feel like she will be, but maybe her attorneys will advise her differently.
I would imagine her attorneys will speak for her, at least until it's all resolved, because these folks are evil, and they'll take
They're so evil.
a comma out of place and crucify you for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Matt, I know you have a big event coming up in Vegas, and I want to get that. I want to get the link to that in the chat for folks too.
Oh, it's
Um,
not mine per se. It's the Gateway Pundit is putting it
that's
on.
right.
9/10 August. It's called Vindicated. Right, it's the folks who stood up and spoke, and it's Jim and Joe
It's
Hoft
an
are putting it
incredible
on.
lineup.
It's Laura Logan's moderating it. It's Rudy Giuliani. It is Roger
General
Stone,
Flynn.
Wayne Allen Root. God, there's so many more there. I can't remember, but it is an amazing group of folks. General Flynn will be there, um, and I think the timing is perfect. And then I'm going to coordinate more today. If we get our ducks in a row, mid September, we're looking at doing something in DC, something on the lines of election national state of emergency. Laura Logan's already agreed to host it. Um, Working with some folks in DC to get a venue and talk about this is what happened, and here's the solution going forward, right? And the folks that I'm working with in DC who know DC very well, so that's very timely and critical for DC to be put on notice that we, the people, aren't staying with the status quo regarding the election system.
Well, that's awesome. Do you, well, maybe there should be a push to get people, representatives from all 50 states there in support of what y'all are doing.
Well, yeah, and again, I'll find out today. I'll kind of get the meat
Okay.
on the bone, and once I do, I'll let you know, and we'll push it out and ask everybody to come.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Matt, before you go, plug your show. On tap with PPN.
It's on tap with PPN on PPN. If you look at Patriot Party News, you can Google it. You can. It's on Rumble, X account, and it's Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, six Central. I know coming up on Monday we'll have Roger Stone. Amber Robinson. I was talking to her producer. She's going to pop back on again and kind of give us an update on where she stands. Yeah, come and join, and kind of like what you do. We just have a discussion. We get great people. We get them on the show and let them rip. Talk about what you think's important, and let's have fun.
Well, it's a great show, and you have amazing guests. So thank you for what you're doing, Matt. Thanks for continuing the drumbeat, for being just relentless and dogged and persevering in what you're doing. You are the master connector. You've connected us with so many great people, and I know you don't just do that for us, but you do it for a lot of people. So thank you for that. And we love you, and I just hope that we get to finally meet in person soon.
I tell you, here's what we should do. We got to get Tommy Waller, the great Tommy Waller in your state,
Yeah.
who's the president of Center for Security Policy now. We should go to his place or something because that man can cook. The oysters there are amazing. Let's have a food. Let's have a Louisiana food fest in Louisiana.
If you're coming to Louisiana, it will be a food fest. No two ways about it.
I've been all over the world. Man, the best food I've ever had. I love it. Is Louisiana food. It's amazing.
That's right. Well, maybe you need to have an event down here if we can make it happen.
Yeah, we'll get with Tommy and you all and Kilowatt, and we'll make it happen. I love that. That's a great idea.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we need the help down here. Our elections are under grave threat right now. Our Secretary of State has put her foot like lead on the gas to buy new machines to the tune of $150 million, including electronic poll books. So we are doing our level best to fight against her, but the legislature gave her the golden ticket to do whatever she wants. So I'm not sure. We feel like we're in a race against the clock. We feel like, we've put out calls to action to the public and encouraging President Trump to stand up and speak on our behalf because because our legislature, all of our elected officials, everything we've said, all of our pleas have fallen on deaf ears when it comes to the elections.
And I tell you, folks there locally, go to Mark's site, handcountroadshaw.org. He's got a calculator there, and the calculator basically it's looking at the size of your precinct, the number of voters you have, and so forth, and it'll run the numbers for you. It's pretty good as far as how many
How much it'll
people you
cost?
need, how much it'll cost, all that stuff. And instead of like millions, you're talking like maybe $10,000, right, to do a hand count for a precinct, and depending on the size, it'll tell you how long it will take, how many people, how many things you got to buy, and he shows you. And part of it, he has cameras that using technology to increase transparency, so everyone can see everything. And it's a great tool, and it's on handcountroadshaw.org. It's a calculator there, and you just plug in the variables, and it'll tell you the cost, and it's a hell of a lot less
Beautiful.
than a
Does it
hundred and
do the
some
state
million
level?
dollars,
The
and
whole.
the money stays locally. It stays with you
Yeah.
in your
Thank you.
in your local.
Thank you. Yeah, amazing. I'll take a look at that because we've been, President Trump had Governor Landry at a press conference. Gosh, probably, I don't know, it's been a couple months back now. And he used that opportunity to tell Jeff that he could save a whole lot of money if he went with paper ballots, that they would cost on average 8% of what the machines were. Patriots here have gotten to President Trump to get that messaging in front of the governor. Now, the governor has not seemed too amenable to that. And if you look at him, he looks like, somebody might have peed in his tea. But when he got that message, he didn't appreciate it. But we won't stop the drumbeat of it. But it would be amazing to know a real number to put in Secretary of State
It's
Landry's
right there. You
face.
take a look at it, and it is pretty dang good, and it's based on experience and folks. The 31 May event that Hava Loudon, Laura Shar, Beth Beazle, and I think his name is Kenner Keith Weibel put on, um, and then what we did out here. But go to that site, look at the calculator. You put in the variables, and it tells you, and it's pretty damn cheap, and it shows you the time
Awesome.
period based on those numbers. How quickly you get it. If you want to get the count done faster, you add another one or two people, and it shows you the number of people you need, the time it will take, and the dollars involved, and the equipment you need.
Awesome. Well, a big thanks to Mark as well. I know he's
Yes.
he's on the trail and he's another relentless one. So give him our love as well. And thank you for everything, Matt. God bless you, man.
Will do, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining me on For the Love of Freedom. I'm live with a guest on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central, and you can always catch the recordings after the fact, as well as clips from the show on all of the State of Freedom platforms.